For Yoonwoo to think that the first thing he hears about him in 5 years is an obituary. 3 years ago, his mother, who already knew about his illness, spent the rest of her life trying to find his brother who disappeared. She has been ill for a while now, and she has gone to a better place. He said he gave up on trying to find his little brother and left Korea as he volunteered to be dispatched to Africa. And he thought that he was sure he would have no reason to come back to Korea again. The moment his brother was discovered, some articles about him were hugging, or maybe he was shooting a movie or a pocket watch. And he gave him a pocket watch as a present to wish him good luck on his college entrance exam as he thanked his Han. His Han asked him what he thought about his thoughtfulness, and he replied that something like that is more stylish than a digital watch. But what is this inscription on the pocket watch that Jae stands for his name but Cha stands for his last name? And he said he needs to complain to the agency and he needs to fix it immediately. But his little brother said there is no need for such, that he will carry it like that, and if there is ever a time he writes his name, that he can just write it as CH. To his brother, who will hold the journal one day, but by the time he is holding that, he will most likely not be a part of that world anymore. Looking at the pocket watch, it is an auditory hallucination, but there is nothing installed on the clock, and told his little brother that he is sorry that he had a hard time because of him, that he just wanted to get some medications that would treat his mom, and he thought he would be able to go back really soon, but he ended up drifting away like that. On October 9, 2013, he received a strange text message, and the subject matter was too strange for it to be labeled spam, and it stated nothing else except whether or not he would like to participate. And normally, he would have ignored it, but his emaciated mother in the hospital room caught his eye, so he just said he would do it with the thought that it might be true. And from that day on, he started to have weird dreams. On October 12, 2013, he had a dream, and he is certain it was reality, and he is sure there were elf and dwarf species present, and it was a world where the orc troll and the dragon spirits roamed. At the center of all that was the sun. God's tower. Rumors even said that if he surpasses the obelisk, he will become a god himself. However, his interest was in the all-cure medicine that was located inside the tower in the form of an elixir. On October 28, 2013, he formed a team with like-minded people and started to climb the tower. However, if you were to compare it to the real world, the place was not to be messed with. On November 9, 2013, he decided to run away from home, and he will probably only have to struggle for half a year, and with that he cut off his connection to the real world. December 1, 2013, their team's name is then Atrium, and Atrium was the best in aspects, and likewise on September 7, 2014. Their rate of conquest is slower than expected, so it will probably take another year. And November 11, 2014, a conflict has arisen with a high-ranking of CAB, and their rate of conquest has encountered an obs. They are unable to reach an agreement, and they are going to war. On February 31, an opposing clan they allied with has been destroyed. Then on March 4, be with someone he loves, and by September 19, there is another outbreak of war, and the way is still going on. Everyone was exhausted by January 2. A traitor has emerged, and there is discord within the clan that everyone is starting to get suspicious of each other. On June 6, and his body was getting heavier because he was an addict. By July 1, 2017. Half of the members have left the clan, and they are getting defeated in the war, and his body condition is slowly deteriorating. On October 30, and in November, the woman who held him in the heart and left him, and his body is beginning to rot by November. On February 1, 2018, he was the only one who remains on Atria. And where did things start to go wrong? As he possessed the elixir, but he was unable to send it home because he was surrounded by enemies, and it was then he knew that there is only one person in the world who is on his side. However, he cannot show those people that he was weak, and that is why he was leaving all the entries, and he is sure that if he listens to all of that, he will get the elixir and deliver it to his mom and his Han as well. At the succession commencing, mana is the power that the tower and those in the other world possess. And to his brother, who will listen to him one day, and the awakening was complete, the succession process is incomplete, and it indicates that they should please complete the succession after his body has been perfected with his current progress of 5%. And his current condition is incomplete, that his body's ability has partially advanced, and his nature has been discovered, that his skills have been added and can only register his player, the obelisk. And then he knew exactly what really happened to his brother, and also knew why someone led him to death and why he came back to his life in 5 years, and if that is the case, he needs to avenge him, and by following the rules of that world, he will do the same to all. Yoonwoo said the Windows status really feels like a game after completing his awakening. It said his body would adjust accordingly, but his abilities are still very lacking. The nature of cold-blooded exhibits an unrelenting rationale in any situation, and he is completely immune to anything along the lines of mind control like denouncement or brainwashing, and his nature isn't bad at all. The dragon's visual prowess is the dragon's eyes that penetrate even the truth, and he is able to preview a portion of a person or object's ability beforehand. Jung-woo said that he met the ancient dragon Kalitas and formed a contract with him on the 11th floor, and the heightened senses have 5 senses heightened drastically. Jung-woo believed he was given heightened senses because it works well with his nature, but the one that really caught his attention was the last one, and it is because it was clairvoyance as he went along with the pocket watch for now. Jung-woo said he felt like Jung-woo just wanted him to find the elixir and quietly disappear, but he didn't think he could just do that as he asked Surgeon Cha what he was talking about, as he said he wanted to have dinner together all of a sudden. Then he further asked Surgeon Cha if something did happen to him, and if he had a grievance he wanted to talk about, and with that he settled all of his affairs, in which he put his house up for sale, and he burned his military uniform as well as his backpack. Jung-woo also bought a brand new backpack and packed it with a couple articles of clothing, some rations, and some knives that were identical to the ones he used in the unit, and a first aid kit. He thought to himself that he wanted to get a gun or some explosives from the black market, but he cannot continuously supply himself with more magazines, and it will only be a hassle. Players who start late are given an advantage on how late he or she starts, and the closer one gets to surpassing the front burner, and the more points one can accumulate. And there is also a hidden piece that newcomers can take advantage of, and that thing should be appearing right about then. Jung-woo said he is going to let those who are on the other side know who they were messing with, and from that day onwards he is named Cha Jung-woo, as he has entered floor O where the tutorial begins. He said that the place is exactly the same as what he saw in the journal. The tower was an entrance X for players that gave them the chance to become a god, and in order to climb the tower, one must prove that he or she is qualified to do so in the place that tests if one is qualified as the tutorial. And beyond the place is where the people who hurt Jung-woo are, and he told him to wait for him a little, that he will be there soon. In order to enter the tower, he must first achieve a high score and clear the tutorial at an overwhelmingly high score, and he can't achieve anything less than first place. And those hidden pieces that are there as well, so he need to gather as many of those as possible and upgrade from his imperfect state. Before he starts climbing the tower, he needs to make his plate as much as possible and focus on that, for then as he received a guest at a time like that he thought he wasn't going to be able to meet him, and he would just leave. The guest said no matter how big his heart is, someone unexpectedly showed such an attitude that he will be hurt, and told Jung-woo to put away the knife he was pointing at him. That the guest introduced himself as Floor O's manager, and who was also a guide, Abdul Kara, and he said meeting him like that was probably fate, and asked him to clap for him. So Jung-woo said advice from the manager may be something that one can trivially brush over, but it's good to keep it in mind. The manager said it seems like he knows about who they are somewhat, and he just thought that he was a really shy person because he was wearing a mask, said Jung-woo, and the manager said further that since he was somewhat familiar, it should be easy to talk to him. The tutorial is separated into 7 different blocks that go from A to G, and each section has its own created environment, and each with different trials that must be completed, and which is the goal. During the time allocated to him, his score will be determined based on how he completes the trials, and all scores will be accumulated together, and his final result will be announced. There are some benefits of achieving a high score, and it is the higher the score, the better his rewards in the future, and he is certain that he has explained the portion to him thoroughly, and he asked the manager on how much time he has left. And the manager answered and said he will have 30 days a month, and how he will split those days up for each block is entirely up to him. The player, however, they are currently about 1 week into the round already, and asked Jung-woo what he would like to do, or maybe he would like to start on the next round. The top group is probably as far ahead as they can be, and to the point where it would be impossible for a newcomer to catch up to them, as he already expected that anyway. The manager said further that when he tried a Finua block, it is recommended that he form a party with around 3 to 5 people, and with that being said, that probably means that he will achieve a higher score if he were to sold it. He said further that the tower grows the foundation of the player's work as his contributions increase and his work becomes more noteworthy. The way his score is calculated will be adjusted separately, so he need not to worry. The manager thought that those types of players go one of 2 ways, as they either believe solely on their skill and die while acting high and mighty, or they become a sight to see. If that is what he mean, then he will begin the trial immediately. The trial on floor O will now begin. The newcomer who is trying to become a god in order to climb the tower must prove that he has what it takes to do so, in the terms of achievements is that he must achieve a high score within the allotted time. You have now entered block A, and which is to disarm or destroy all the traps in that block. But Jung-woo thought to himself that the journal did warn him about block having a lot of traps, and however, since the location and trigger mechanism for those traps is unknown, and that knowledge wasn't a big help, as he uses his iron arrow, and he need to stick to the wall and lessen his body exposure as much as possible. Extreme pain has overcome his body and he is then stunned, and his cold-blooded nature will keep him composed, and he feels he is no longer stunned and he has developed a tolerance for that pain. Yeon-woo thought he knew it was dangerous, but he didn't expect it to that degree, as it was going to drive him insane if things started out like that. He is being notified that he has been burned and he is stunned, that his cold-blooded nature will keep him composed. He is no longer stunned, but he has developed a resistance to burn. And when the arrow was shot at him, it was timed, and there was also a very faint signal too, and he thought he needed to find the right timing. And finding where the arrows are with the naked eye won't be possible because it is dark, and you need to listen for when the cogwheel turns, because that will be the perfect time to find out the arrow's location and trajectory. During that short period of time, he needs to listen for the exact sound that makes that heightened senses. As he was notified by the system that his sense of touch has been heightened and his hearing has been heightened and his heightened senses skills level has increased to 0.8%. He lifted up his face as he said he has found it. Depending on how he deal with the arrows, there is a difference on which stat is increased, and dodging the blue arrow from the side will increase agility, in which his agility had gone up by 1. Parrying a red arrow will increase strength, in which his strength had gone up by the, and getting hit by a yellow arrow will increase stamina, as his stamina had gone up by the, and the more he accumulated, the more he can achieve with his job. But one thing that bugs Yeon-woo is that there is no way to increase his NP stat. Even so, if he can take advantage of that and steadily increase the stats that he wants. Then the manager of Floor O said the more he observe him, the more interesting he becomes, and he feel like he is the character who is the first of his kind, and he said strangely his eyes are more drawn to the person in Block A who has his hands full than the people in Block E. And he concluded and said Yeon-woo is the real one for sure. Even if he qualifies, he will have to face many other dangers, but if he can be that sensible and pass the rest, and he feel like a lot of fun spectacle will arise during the tutorial, as he was notified he has reached the end point. Yoon thought that except for NP, all the other stats have substantially gone up, and going up that much in a day is a pretty good outcome, and his physical strength, mobility, endurance, and destructive power have all around gone up, as he was notified that his treatment for his wounds will begin. He saw an area of players to rest, and then he could finally catch his breath now as he fell asleep to see Peekaboo, and he wondered who the person was, and he was sure his heightened senses skill was still in effect, and how he did not notice that the person was next to him. Yeon-woo thought the person is a mystery merchant, and the man said it is a relief that he knows who he was, and he loves him the dearest solicitor, as he meant his customer, and told him to allow him to introduce himself, and he called his name the merchant who passes by. Occasionally, merchants would appear at the end point to supply the players with what they need in exchange for payment, and starting from commonplace food, potions, skill books, and even all kinds of artifacts, as a merchant who seeks everything in the world. Then the merchant said after coming that far and did something that really need come to mind, that he is a merchant who sells everything that exists in that world, and tell him if he is in need of something that he should let him know. Medusa's venom, the golden goat's horn, the Tiamat's left eye, that each of those are just really rare artifacts, and there is no way a tutorial player could acquire those types of items, and Yeon-woo thought that he is not at the stage where he can rely on artifacts or skills, and he thought to just focus on physical training. As he found the reset ticket, he went back to his certain desired point and asked the merchant how he would pay for those items. He gave him, he replied and said he should pay it with his stats and just need to pay the correct amount. He said they are merchants with a conscience who only offer reasonable prices and with mineral water for 2 strength, and that is the highway robbery at its finest, and told the merchant that there is something he would like to purchase, and the merchant answered and said he should ask, and what would he like to have. Then he said by offering all of the stats he accumulated in Block A as payment, and B would like to purchase a ticket that will reset Block A. Yeon-woo was asked by the merchant if he was talking about a reset ticket, and he said further that he was the first person to ask for it, and people often ask for something that will help them advance to the next stage easily, so there is no one who asks for something that will require a do-over. And he replied and said there is because there is something he wants to do, and the merchant thought he is an entertaining participant, and using the ticket is incredibly easy, and if he ripped the ticket at a location of his choice, but would be recalled to the starting zone. And the merchant said he shall then take his leave, hoping that he will meet again next time, and all of the stats he had acquired in Block A will now be taken as payment, and immediately Yeon-woo felt like his strength is leaving him as he had acquired Block A reset ticket X10 as he showed in the Floor O, where he start the tutorial as Floor O trial will then begin. Yeon-woo said he will accumulate as many stats as possible there as it was his last tutorial. As he refined his senses through the repetition of that tutorial and synesthesia, then in the palm of his hand is dragon visual prowess, which is a skill where he can partially callate his eyes of truth, and when accumulate the eyes for the first time, he was shocked about the new perspective he was experiencing. The dragon's visual prowess got rid of all of the color in his field of vision, and all he could see was a white background and black lines that bring out the outline of the object, in which his brother called that phenomenon Gile, as he have reached the end point and thought it would take around 4 hours. For something that once took him 34 hours to complete, as that will be a big accomplishment for him and have gone up quite a bit, and with stats like that it will be enough for him to get destroyed by other people. The top players are probably already on their way to Block E, and if he fall behind even more than then, he won't be able to catch up to them, and it is now time to seriously begin that race, as he had entered Block as boss room, as he was going to clear both Block A and B. Haste is faster than expected, as his strength has gone up by 1. He can't slow down there, and which means falling means instant death, and if that is the case, his ability has gone up by 1. Due to his cold-blooded nature, he have developed a resistance to burns, and the heightened senses skill has gone up to 15.6%, as his ability has gone up by 1, as his stamina has gone up by 1, and his heightened senses skill level has gone up by 16.9%, as he thought maybe it is the copper scarecrow or the things that copy the players. And a scarecrow that imitates the player's movements and actions exactly is also capable of attacking within a certain range, as he said his brother also mentioned those things as well. And those things can copy the skills of players and use it against them with more force, and if he can defeat them, he will be allowed to enter the boss room. But if he cannot defeat them, he will be like being tied down by a ball and chain, and there were 2 ways to break through those things, as he can destroy them head-on or stab through them, as his dragon eyes is activated and said the chest place is the weak point, and that thing moves according to its sensors, and find the sensors and aim for those. And those things can copy the skills of players and use it against them with more force, and if he can defeat them, he will be allowed to enter the boss room. But if he cannot defeat them, he will be like being tied down by a ball and chain, and there were 2 ways to break through those things, as he can destroy them head-on or stab through them, as his dragon eyes is activated and said the chest place is the weak point, and that thing moves according to its sensors, and find the sensors and aim for those. Yeon-woo thought maybe the person he noticed when his senses were heightened, and already knew that the scarecrow move according to its sensors. Yeon-woo was barely able to figure out that the copper puppet operates with its sensors by using his heightened senses, and it is something that normal players couldn't have figured out, and he wondered how a small boy knew and asked him what he was going to do with him as a weak person like him. Then Yeon-woo was surprised by the question the little boy asked him about his intentions towards him, and also asked him about the fact that the copper puppet operates with its sensors, and he replied and said he was able to see the magical string that was enveloping the copper puppet. And as expected, he is able to see magic, and that means that he has an extremely high affinity to it, even amongst those who can control magic. And Yeon-woo still asked him further that how did he see and control the magic is what he is most interested in, and asked him if he can teach him how to do it. If he can learn the technique, it will be a big help for him when it comes to learning how to control magic, and he won't ask him to teach him for free. And it seems like he has been trapped there for a while, and he will help get him out of there and think how bad it is. And asked him if what he really said was the truth, that the fact he really said he is unable to control his magic. He said he doesn't have a reason to lie and makes no sense to Yeon-woo, and he was telling him that something like that is possible when he can't even control magic, and normally, no matter how many skills he uses or how many physical blows he land, there isn't even a scratch on it. And if he is able to completely obliterate something like that with a couple of hits and he can't control magic, she introduces himself as a Yule and is ready to help him and asks him what he wants him to do for him. Yeon-woo said the first thing he will do is that he will open up a path and asked him to follow right behind him. However, "Why are you presenting yourself like that?" asked Yeon-woo to Yule, as he looked more or less like a facade, because he is probably 10 years old inside and out, and he is young and short as well. Yeon-woo told him that he must be a normal person and he should make sure to use honorifics. Just because he is a child doesn't mean he will be lenient to him. As they both flew around and almost got to Block B, and asked him to speak up when they are there, and he answered and said he doesn't know how he will think of that, but he was innately able to visually see mana, and Yeon-woo said maybe it's a bloodline limit skill, and it is similar because there aren't many in the world, but it occasionally happens in a different world, and those people typically pass on those traits from their great ancestors into the next generation via the bloodline. Then the descendant awakens the skill at a special time and achieves something great with it, and then passes it on again to the next descendant, and asks Yule to inform him that he should inform him that he is one of those cases. And he said the skill that he inherited allows him to feel, see, and taste magic, and it's more like he has an affinity for it, and that is how he knew that the copper puppet was connected to its sensors, and also asked if it is similar to Jeong-woo case. The nature that his brother had was called perfect adaptation, and being compatible with everything means that he was also compatible with mana as well, and rather than experiencing the hardship that people who are from Earth normally go through, he did not feel uncomfortable when he worked with mana. In fact, it's almost as if he recovered a precious item that was able to control it like he was already an expert, and he knew that because his comrades said that they were shocked when they saw what he was doing, because he was able to communicate with all things, he was able to communicate with all things, and he was able to inherit the dragon's foundational skills when normal people could not. Technically speaking, both of those people are classified as geniuses, and he does not fall into that category. And he can view mana as a type of river, and magic is the water from small ridges or a reservoir that flows through that river, as he has cleared block A as a solo player. Yeonwoo have also achieved something that many would find very difficult, and have been given additional karma, and have received 500 karma, and his stamina and mana have been replenished. Karma, the concept of it was very important at the tower, and the administration would use that as a basis for the game so that it can be given to him as a reward and act as a currency amongst players, which would allow the player to purchase or sell goods. And if one is a player, his goal is to accumulate as many points as possible, and Yeonwoo has cleared block A. But he have already accumulated so much that people would be astounded that they would hear about that, as he have entered block B. And finally, he made it out as he was talking about the mana stream or something, and to his surprise, Yule knew a lot of magic, and the information was hard to understand as usual, but he was able to get a rough idea about the concepts of magic and mana.
And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video, but most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.